Today we're going to be doing some tie rods, aftermarket tie rods on our Talon. And what we're going to be using, these are really cool. We got radius rods and some other stuff that we're going to be installing as well. But these are the JSport side-by-side aftermarket tie rod ends. Very beefy, really nice Heim, really super quality piece. One thing that I pay attention to whenever I buy something from somebody is how it's packaged. And I'll show you more when we're going to do a radius rod video here in just a little bit too, so we're working on both ends, but I'll show you some more packaging there. But trust me, either go over to the radius rod video and check it out, or just take my word for it. But it is amazing the way that JSports packages their stuff, and the quality of the stuff is second to none. And it's pretty obvious that they really care when you see how they're packaged. They're wrapped up, quality control sticker, everything. I mean, it's just unbelievable packaging. So trust me on that one, and we'll show you more in the radius rod video. But for those of you that are not familiar with JSports and who that is, this is Jeff Proctor's group. Jeff Proctor, Adam Gunn, those guys that do the Honda Ridgeline off-road factory truck. They also obviously are doing the Honda factory Talon race cars, and started off first rattle out of the box was the King of Hammers this year, and on from there. So they're still developing these race cars, but these parts are from the race car people, the race Talon people. So just amazing quality machine work, just really cool pieces. Like I said, really good Heims here, and these are designed to go into the factory spindles without having to modify anything. Some of these tie rod ends you have to knock the bushing that's in the spindle out, and these you do not. They're made to go right in there. So really nice. This is our factory tie rod, so you can compare the difference there. These are aluminum, these are steel, but really nice pieces, as you can see. So let's go over a little bit of what we need to change these out. And first, let me say you don't need all these specific wrenches. If you've got an adjustable wrench that'll go to at least an inch, then you're in. But whenever we're taking these off, the inner part of the tie rod that's in the rack, you'll need a 16 millimeter wrench to hold that. The nut that's still on the inner here is 22, so good to have that. There is obviously a cotter pin, so you'll just need a pair of pliers, whatever, to get the cotter pin out. And then these, I'm old school, so I do old school stuff, but basically what I did here to get this out of the spindle is I just backed this nut off till it's nice and flush, just like that, with the stud, and just a couple taps with the trusty snap-on ball peen. Gets it out of there. The Honda manual, we have that. If you don't have one, get it. My gosh, you need it. Mandatory as far as I'm concerned. The Honda manual actually recommends, this is the Harbor Freight version. I don't think Honda's recommending the Harbor Freight version, but I am, of this tie rod separator. So this is super cheap at Harbor Freight, and this is a massively handy thing to have. So even if you're not going to use it on this thing, you should get one anyway, because you will find uses for it all the way around. And I'll put a link to this down in the show notes, so you can pick one of those up at Harbor Freight. Whenever we start going back together, then you'll need a 24 millimeter for the nut that's on the Heim, and then the flats to adjust this are an inch. There may be something metric, but an inch is what fit it for me. So like I said, very much quality pieces. We're going to go through the installation process of how to get the old tie rod off, put the new one on, and how to adjust this and set the toe in the shop. And it's really super easy to do. I will tell you that once I set the toe, I'm still going to go to the alignment shop and have everything, make sure that everything's perfectly set up on the front and the back whenever we put the radius rods on there as well. But that's not necessary. That's just my OCD being OCD. Plus I got a buddy in the alignment shop that does a lot of side-by-side alignment. So I'm just gonna run it over there and let him do it. But we'll show you how to measure where Honda had it. There has been some discussion on the Facebook groups and on the forums that a lot of these were not set up right from Honda. Honda, the manual says that it should be set up at 0 toe, so actually absolutely no difference front and back of the tire. We'll show you how to measure that, how to make that happen. It's super simple. You can do it yourself with nothing but a tape measure and a friend. We'll be using my wife Cheryl, my best friend. So let me get set up to do some of that stuff, and we'll show you how that goes, and continue on with the JSport side-by-side aftermarket tie rod installation. All right, we're back at the Talon. Let me show you what we got going on here. So this is a way to do this. Maybe not the best way, maybe not the perfect way. It's just the way we're doing it. So if you got something a different way or a suggestion on a better way for people that aren't going to the alignment shop like I am later, then please comment below. So first thing we did here, we need to, basically what we need to do is we need to measure the front of the tire to the back of the tire to determine if they're towed in, if the front of the tires are pointing towards each other, or if they're towed out, the front of the tires are pointing away from each other. Honda says this should be set up at 0. I might beg to differ with that just a little bit, but we'll see. And even if you're not doing the tie rods, like I said in the intro, you really should check this to make for sure. So in the back of the tire is really where you got to pay the most attention. As you can see, we got the SSS skid plates on here. So in the ride height here is 15 inches right to the bottom of the skid plate right there, and that right where we're going to measure. So what we did on our tires, we came here at 15 inches, and you can see that I just put a piece of tape on the tire so I could see it better, and I marked vertically where the 15 inches was, and then I just used the center seam of the tire to mark where the center was. So we got two measurements here. We got the center of the tire, two marks, the center of the tire, and then the horizontal line on there is the vertical measurement of 15 inches. So we did that in the back. We did exactly the same thing in the front. Okay. And on this tire as well, exactly the same thing. And Cheryl helped me measure. And right now, I haven't moved any of this from the way that it came. So even though Honda says that should be set at 0, where my Talon is right now before changing anything is it is 1/8 of an inch towed in. This measurement for me was 57 5/8 in the front and 57 3/4 in the rear. So that gives us an 1/8 inch of toe in, and I'm going to set it back up exactly that same way. I like that little bit of toe in. I think that's a good idea. I'll see what my buddy Chris says when we get over at the alignment shop. I'll let him align it however he thinks, and then we'll drive it and see how it goes. But that's just the super simple way that anybody can check the toe in or toe out of not just a Talon, but of anything really. And like I said, the only critical things are that you have to mark both tires perfectly center, front and rear. And you need to make sure that your tape measure goes straight under the chassis. So make sure you know that measurement, so you're not bending the tape measure, because it's obviously super important for the tape measure to be perfectly straight here. So let me set up again, and we'll show the process. All right, so we're back at the Talon. Let me talk about a couple things here. The first thing is I took the tire off just to show this better, but don't take the tire off. It is super easy to do without taking the tire off. What I did to make sure everything was going to stay the same is I have a hillbilly brake, so I have a hillbilly brake set, so none of this is moving. The calipers are all locked, and I should be able to put this back together without anything moving and not have to mess with it. But if you just leave the tires on it, it's super easy to do. So what I have already done here is there is a cotter pin that is locking it. This is not a locking nut from Honda, as most tie rod ends are not. Little holes in here. So the cotter pin's actually in this hole. So I've already taken the cotter pin out. And like we talked about earlier, if you'll back this out until You just pretty much flush on the end like that and just hit it with a hammer. It should come right out of there. If it doesn't, then we'll use our ball joint separator. I will also, I didn't say this earlier, but I try to use something powered. This is a 14mm nut that's on here, and I try to use something powered. It just makes it easier there to spin it off really quick and not rotate the stud in the ball joint or in the tie rod end. So if you got something powered, that's the easiest thing. So let me get under here where I can see it and see if we can get that thing tapped loose. And if not, we'll back up to our separator. All right, that's all there is to it. And like I said, as long as you got that nut flush on the end, then you're not going to hurt anything there. And you'll be able to reuse that. I mean, we want to be able to reuse this because I don't think there'll ever be a problem with the JSports pieces, but I'm going to carry one of these in my tool bag just in case I should need one or somebody else should need one. I've never seen one of these broken, and I have all the confidence in the world that the JSport stuff's not going to break. But just in case, we obviously don't want to mess up the threads. We want to be able to reuse it. Okay, in here, I know it's really hard to see, and I'm sorry that it is, but you'll get the idea. The inner tie rod that's going into the rack has a hex shaft on it. And so you can put your 16mm wrench or your adjustable wrench on there. And then the nut, this is the right hand, these are right hand threads here, so normal direction to loosen. So you're going to put that on there and just loosen up the nut. And all we want to do here literally is just get the nut away from the tie rod, and pretty much that's it. I got too much pressure on it, there we go. So once you get that out, you're just going to unscrew this thusly off of the tie rod. And get our JSport tie rod, and a pretty trick little set of hardware here on the JSport stuff. It actually has a through bolt. It has a through bolt with these machined pieces and an actual, not a nylock nut, but an actual locking nut that's on here. And so let's put this back together. And these are actually just from center here to the end here is actually just a little bit shorter than the Honda one. So whenever we do this, and like I said, this has a left hand thread down here and a right hand thread up there, so you'll be able to turn this and adjust it just like the stock one. So we're going to go back in approximately that same place and have just a little bit down here, and we're not going to tighten anything yet. Pull this back out. Take our this is a 10.9 hard bolt, but in our upper sleeve, put that in just like that. I found it's easier for me to put the lower sleeve in the spindle and then get everything together just like that. Put our washer, if I can get it, and put our washer and our nut on the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. I'll get my torque wrench and do this off camera, but basically we're going to leave this, we're going to tighten, but everything else is going to stay loose because this is our adjustment. As you can see, that's making it longer, that's making it shorter. And I know from measuring this overall length that it's maybe a 1/4 of an inch shorter center to end than the Honda one was, so we know it's going to be a little bit longer. So we'll just make a guess in here somewhere to leave it. I'll tighten this up and torque this and go ahead and change the other side, get everything back together so we can set up the toe in, and I'll come back. This, according to the manual, Honda says 25 pounds on this nut, so that's what we're going to do here again. And I said, let me get all this done, and we'll set back up and come back in. All right, we're back. We got everything done, and time to talk about some lessons learned here. So first thing is, let me reiterate, do not take the tires off of it. Do what I did. It makes it much harder if you do that. It's a simple procedure. You can do it with the tires on. So the best thing that you can do for your install that you're not trying to film is make sure your steering wheel is perfectly straight. Leave the tires on it. Just don't touch it from there. Whenever you when you take the old tie rods off and you get ready to put the new tie rods on, lesson learned here is that inner nut that's on the inner tie rod right up next to the rack, screw that all the way up as far as it'll go towards the rack on both sides. They pretty much come that way anyway, or mine did anyway, but make the JSport's tie rod as short as you can. So screw that heim joint in as far as you can. Not tight, but just hand tight as much as you can. Screw the tie rod all the way up to that nut. So you're basically making the whole assembly as short as it can be to start off with, and that'll give you a 0 to begin from. It's going to be towed out a little bit that way, but that gives you an absolute 0 with your steering wheel straight. So when you start to actually adjust the tie rods, then you can start turning them out. It's nice that it actually says JSport side by side on there, so you can use that to count. So I just turned out around, just made it 1 round longer on both sides. Whatever adjustment you make, you have to make it exactly the same on both sides, or your steering wheel is not going to be straight. So just make sure your steering wheel is straight, turn out exactly the same on both sides. A little bit goes a long way here, so you'll be amazed at how much 1 round will make in the toe end. So like Honda says 0 toes, so your measurement front of the tire, back of the tire should be exactly the same. As I stated earlier, mine was actually about 1/8 of an inch towed in, and I put it right back there again. So we'll see how it drives. I drove around the neighborhood, seems perfectly fine. Steering wheel's nice and straight. So really a simple procedure. There's no other adjustment on the front end, at least with the stock control arms on it. So there's no caster or camber adjustment here at all. It only can set the toes. So pretty simple procedure. And like I said, just make everything as short as you can. Make sure you adjust both the sides exactly the same, and should be good to go. And I'll put the link obviously to the tie rod ends down there. Man, we really appreciate when you comment, when you hit that like button. Those things really help us on YouTube, and obviously still trying to build an audience on YouTube as best we can. So YouTube really looks at the comments and those likes to expand how they market our videos. So if you would do that, hit the subscribe button. As I talked about earlier, we're doing radius rods as well, so have another video coming up really soon on the radius rods, so stay tuned for that. As always, thanks so much for watching. We appreciate y'all, and do leave a comment below if you have something or any questions, or any comments on something we should have done different or something we should do better, and we'll see you next time.